right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to test some of the highest Manstoppers on the Sanow and Marshall one-shot stop charts. Now that was actually from a book from 1992, so that's why you don't see like Gold Dot and HST like that on the list, because a lot of that didn't exist at the time. But what they have on the list is a lot of different cartridges kind of showing, you know, the one-shot stop percentages and stuff like that. So what I did is I brought out 4 different rounds that are above the 90 percentile number, and I want to compare them side to side. Now, some of these designs may have changed throughout the years and stuff like that, but based on the list, I brought out 4 of these. So what I have here is our 9mm 115 grain plus P by Corbon. I have our Federal Hydroshock 230 grain. I have our 40 Smith & Wesson 135 grain Corbon. And then I have our Remington, this happens to be HTP, but it lists like just Remington or Federal semi-jacketed hollow points. So this should be an interesting test now. Our 9mm showing 91% one-shot stop. Our 45 ACP is showing 94% one-shot stop. This particular 40 Smith & Wesson is showing 96% one-shot stop. This particular 357 Magnum is showing also 96% one-shot stop. So I'm going to test them through my full-size guns here, 5-inch barrel pistols, 4-inch barrel revolver, because it's about the same overall size between a 4-inch revolver and a 5-inch pistol. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of power we're getting with those, try to confirm the numbers that might be on the boxes for velocity. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test, where I've been doing just plain clear ballistics to get kind of a baseline of its best case scenario. You know, if this ammo performs really well, you know, no denim in the front, nothing like that, just see how it compares. And then after the fact, I'm going to put in 4 layers of denim and a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard to represent, you know, our clothing and our ribs or sternum. So we go through 3 inches of clear ballistics that's going to be covered by denim. And then after that, there's going to be a 1/4-inch MDF and then some more clear ballistics. And then I'm going to shoot from probably, I want to do about 12 yards today, because what we're really looking at here is some actual, you know, real data we want to collect on this stuff. Not my fun plinking at 100 yards or whatever. Just right up close, just going to shoot and see, you know, what's the controllability of these rounds. You know, how can I control them as an average person? So let's get started with this test. All right, I'm going to start off with our 45 ACP and our 9mm. So our 45 ACP is rated at 900 feet per second. Let's see what we actually get. 908, 921, 916, 933, 933, so pretty good. Now I'm going to test the 9mm. It's rated at 1350 feet per second. A 115 grain bullet. Let's see what we get. 1384, 1403, 1399, 1394, 1383. So that's really impressive velocity. It's a pretty high powered 9mm, very little recoil. Now let's try our 40 Smith & Wesson and our 357 Magnum. All right, 357 Magnum, typical ammo of this design is rated at about 14 to 1450 feet per second. I think Remington might have like 1440 on the box or something like that, but let's see what we get with this. If that was a read, it's 1489. Wasn't paying attention. 1454, 1494, 1441, 1476. So definitely a very powerful round. Not too much recoil, really. I had to look at the box for the 40, rated at 1325 feet per second, which is a pretty fast rating. Let's see what we actually get here. 1193, 1196, 1180, 1183, 1179. So a lot below rated velocity, which is really interesting. It's a 135 grain, so and that's pretty average there. So let's hit our ballistics gel block and see what we get with all these. All right, let's start up with our 9mm and our 45, just our best case scenario playing clear ballistics. So here is our 45 ACP. Here is our 9mm. Let's try the other cartridges now. 357 Magnum. 40 Smith & Wesson. All right, let's go take a look at our plain clear ballistic shots. All right, so I had some technical difficulties there with catching that 40 shot on camera, but we can see it in there. Now, what surprised me the most was our 9mm. We went all the way to the start of the second block there, and we had a total penetration of about 19.5 inches, maybe 19 3/4, which is interesting. It did expand, but I didn't expect to see it do that. Another thing that kind of surprised me is our 45 ACP, which it's down here, where it's hard to kind of see, but we have pieces of jacket, break off. We have a total penetration of about 14.5 inches, so it did not over penetrate. It expanded pretty well. With our 357 Magnum, we got about 13 inches here, which pretty much mirrors what you see in those ballistic chart numbers there, 13 to 13.25, something like that. And we got good expansion, but we got some fragmentation. And those three have very similar damage, but our 40 Smith & Wesson has more damage. And what we're seeing for total penetration is about 12.25 inches. So just barely meets our minimum of 12 inches, but did dump the most energy there. So now let's try it with our 1/4 inch MDF in our denim and see how those compare that way. All right, our denim and our medium density fiberboard, 45 ACP. Try our 9mm. 9mm denim and MDF. 357 Magnum. Let's try our 40. 40 Smith & Wesson. Let's go take a look. All right, so with our real world simulation here, where we have denim that can clog a hollow point, and we have MDF that's like ribs or sternum, we're seeing a big difference here. What we're seeing is with our 9mm, we went to about 22 inches, which isn't too bad for over penetration. Very small amount of expansion, just a little bit. With our 45 ACP, this is pretty typical for what I get. With most 230 grains, we have about 22 inches of penetration, which isn't too extreme of over penetration, but it is over penetrating, no expansion. But what we're seeing is with our 357 Magnum and our 40 Smith & Wesson, we actually got very ideal performance. Now with the 357 Magnum, we went slightly less than our first shot. That was 13 inches. We're at about, our total damage path is about 12.5. So considering it also went through MDF, that definitely meets our minimum there. I would probably consider through MDF 10 inches is fine, just because you're going through something that's very hard. So we got 12.5 inches there. The 357 mag, a little bit of bullet fragments busting off, but pretty good overall. Now with our 40 Smith & Wesson, we got what I would consider completely ideal. We're at about 14.5 inches penetration. We have the most damage in there out of all the ones through our MDF. We have jagged petals, expansion, all of that. So overall, I'm going to say, obviously, our 357 mag and our 40, did the best here. See, our 9mm and our 45 didn't do so well, because when you put that real world simulation in there, and I've really tried to tell people this for a while, is for whatever reason, this is what happens. And I think this is what happens in the real world as well. It goes through denim. It's not expanding. That's why you see those footages where it's taking 15 rounds to stop a threat, because it's not expanding, it's not tearing through. But when you look at the real world data, like 40 what you'll see is 1 shot, 2 shot, that's it, because it's actually performing in the real world. Now, we don't really have any footage of 357 Magnum anymore because it's revolvers, and I don't know of any particular footage of 45 ACP, but this is really, to me, this is mirroring the numbers 100%, where the real world numbers versus the gel numbers don't add up, and we can kind of see why. And you're playing gel shot, doesn't tell you a whole lot, but the real world shot does tell you something. So I'm gonna move up to about 12 yards and fire these quickly and just see, you know, the 40 might be better, but if I can't hit anything with it, then 9mm would be better, etc. So let me try that. All right, first up, I want to compare 45 ACP to 357 Magnum simply because the recoil was more comparable between the two of those. So 12 yards from the target. Let's just see what I can get with our 45 for accuracy. All right, that is usable accuracy. So not bad there. 357 Magnum here. Got myself a reload ready. See what I can do with this. So, 357 Magnum definitely had a little bit more felt recoil, but overall, I'm going to say that, you know, it wasn't that hard to land those shots effectively. Just a little bit slower with our 357. So, let me try our 9mm and our 40 now. All right, 9mm. Let's see if I can control this. All right, so pretty controllable round there. A lot of people don't like the 40. They say it's difficult to control and it's super snappy. Let's see how it feels for me. And again, it's a little bit snappy, and like I've mentioned before, you know, when I'm shooting, I do use kind of revolver holds because it works better for me. And I don't grip with this hand because of my rheumatoid arthritis. So what happens is I do just feel just slightly like my support hand slips up a little bit like this and comes down. But I'm not using it. I'm just using it for weight support anyways. But not really significant there. If you had to compare this to the 357 Magnum, that's kind of that's a joke, because that's where you're actually feeling some recoil. Or even with 45 ACP, but our 40 Smith & Wesson is just barely above 9mm for a felt recoil. So overall, what I'm going to say is they're all very shootable here, but this kind of backs up, you know, what I was thinking before. I would prefer to have a 40 over a 9mm. Just when we look at the real world street data, even with some of these ones that show really high stopping power, when they encounter these real world stuff like a coat, ribs or sternum, 9mm just, it's one of those weird cartridges where it just, either it performs or it doesn't. And it's, you know, I kind of question it. As when we look at 40, we look at 357 Magnum, very effective cartridges. Real world numbers, very effective. A 45 ACP, you know, I don't have a whole lot of data on that. You know, some people say that it works really well, but it's just not as extensive. So I can't really say, you know, how great it is. But from what I'm seeing here, 357 Mag and 40 are still going to be my preferred cartridges to grab if I hear a bump in the middle of the night. So that's what you get today with that. And, you know, interesting results. So as always, comment, share, and like. And thanks for watching.